no mistakes. Rising up from society to sail into freedom. The light unlocks, find the key.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. As I introduced myself before, I am Keith Smith, Keith F. Smith. One Nexus guy said F is for freedom, but it's actually for Frederick. I was going to just talk about Bitcoin and history, but I also want to inject some other things here. I'm not the type of person that really goes by a strict schedule. I'm an anarchist, so I'm a crypto anarchist. I was first introduced to Bitcoin at an End the Fed rally. And some guy's like, hey, man, I got some Bitcoin for sale, like 220 for 20 bucks. I'm like, man, you're freaking crazy nerd, I'm not going to pay 20 bucks for these, digital monies. And, 220 Bitcoin now would be, it's got to be over 700 grand right now. I'm not sure, but that I ended up buying a case of beer with that, and that was the most expensive case of beer in my life. So I don't remember that case of beer either. But I ended up. My story is I was really active in the Philadelphia community and built my name in the End the Fed movement. And one day I was a painting contractor. And I was in a paint store, and here walks in a Federal Reserve Board chairman, and he's, walking in, and I'm like, look at this guy. I don't know, who he is. Just figure a typical homeowner. And then the paint store manager goes, "Oh, my favorite Federal Reserve banker." And I'm like, am I hearing this right? So I look over at him, and then the manager's like, "You're doing a great job with the economy. You're really boosting everything." And I'm like, man, this can't be true. So I walk over to the window, and here's this BMW that's just like, it doesn't have a swirl mark in it. It's the most expensive model I've ever seen. And I'm like, maybe this is really a Federal Reserve banker. And then, so the manager's going around to all the homeowners, the HDTV people that are in there, and they're like, don't you agree? Don't you agree? And they're like, yeah, and they're all starstruck. And then they come to me, and I'm like, well, no, like actually, we're building systems to, bring down your system, like Ithaca hours and mountain hours. And, we're going to outcompete you, even, with gold and silver and Bitcoin. And he was really agitated by what I was saying until I said Bitcoin. And he's like, what's Bitcoin? And I'm like, it's a digital money, it's decentralized on the internet, created by libertarians. And he was like, well, tell me more. And I didn't know. And there I was at this point where I had, perfect chance to debate a Federal Reserve banker, something that I lived for, and I didn't know what I was talking about. So after that, I was like, well, there's no way Bitcoin could be as good as gold and silver. I'm going to prove it wrong. So I went on the internet. And this is, back in 2012, 13. And I couldn't find anything. I just couldn't find any information that could explain it to me. And give a little background, I was developing databases when I was 16, so I have an idea of how technology databases work. And I just chose to go in construction because the dot-com bubble was when I was in college. And if I had continued on with college, I would have had a $10 an hour job. So I chose to have a $50 an hour job in construction instead. So here I am, I'm researching Bitcoin, and I'm like, it clicked one day. I'm like, well, it's better than gold and silver. And so then I decided, hey, I'm going to really look into how we can implement this into everything, replacing with government to commercial systems, and see what we can do with this, and talking with other people, like, how we are here today. And, that's kind of how I got brought to Nexus. I was in another project. The project flopped. And it was mainly because I got scammed out of money. And if you've been in crypto for over a year, it's a tough space. If you made it a year, you're still here, which shows that you're strong. A lot of people go through that first year and they lose a lot of money. I was one of those people, but I stuck around. I averaged down Bitcoin from $900. I bought it, when it was coming down from 900 all the way down to 280, and been buying it all the way back up. Why? Because I believe in it, and it is a belief system. That's what monetary systems are. They survive on belief. As soon as people stop believing in the dollar will no longer have any value whatsoever. Same thing applies to Bitcoin, except there's not a government there to prop it up. So everybody that, throws their money in at an early time, I would say now's an early time. It's a high risk. It could go to zero. It could. A lot of people say it can't, but it can. So you never know, but that's a risk you take, but it's got a little bit more trust with it because it survived this far without the government involved. And this is why I'm so attracted to the technology. So one day, I'm just minding, my own business, like done with crypto, and Preston's like, hey man, you really got to talk to Colin again, because I talked to him before, and we were talking about, how patents suppress ideas. And I talked to him, about, my idea to have a platform that would, kind of push through intellectual property and give you, your name signed cryptographically on the digital property, and it'd be a good idea. And then we got to, talking about Tesla, and then, talking about some other things about the project that I was working on. And then, didn't talk to him for a while. And then Preston's like, I was trying to save the other project because I believed in the hardware system being with the software system to make it operate correctly or decentralized, because it's a security flaw having everything on telecom communications. You don't want them to have control. I mean, big corporations are really no better than the government. As a matter of fact, what are telecom communications? They're utilities. They are the government. It's like a fascist arm of the government. So I believe that was the biggest weakness that I saw in Bitcoin was the internet. And I've always been working towards that. And then I found out, hey, Colin took some of my ideas and he made them work. The variable proof of interest, okay? The proof of stake being variable and helping the network was something that I came up with, but nobody could make it work. I had guys make it, and it kept on, the code would just mess up badly. I mean, it was just horrible. And it was frustrating because I was like, I guess nobody can do this. All we can do is do it one way, because everybody's used to just forking and cloning code. And then that really interested me. And Preston's like, come on, man, really consider it. So I'm like, all right, I'm gonna listen to Colin, and I'm gonna talk to him on the phone, talk to him for a couple hours, listen to one of his podcasts, and then I'm like, all right, he had a white paper before, so I read that white paper, and then I'm like, I'm gonna look at the code, because he said it came from these places. I want to see what he added here, and I saw all the work that he put into it, and I was like, this is something different, like this is not what I've seen before. It's not just a name change. I mean, most altcoins you see out there, it's just a rebranding basically, and they're just forking off the chain. That's not what this is. And then I looked at it, I'm like, this is actually kind of like how Bitcoin was, where it was ridiculous. I mean, what was a thousandth of a penny for a Nexus. I'm like, anybody can buy now. This isn't being like, it's not like at $200 a coin, and it's not getting pumped, and nobody's talking about it. So, and that's kind of the reason I don't talk about it too much. But, I've done a little guerrilla marketing, but I wanted to allow other people to find the technology and not make it a marketing campaign. Because the marketing campaign hypes things up before they're ready. And we thought, hey, we need to test the network before it's ready. Let people grow the network, and if the network can't handle it, we can know what we have to fix. But that's kind of, that's my story, how I came into the Nexus. And, Colin, a lot of you know Colin, he's pretty laid back dude. He was on a podcast, and the dude couldn't tear apart his coding. There was nothing to tear apart. So he's like, hey, your website sucks, so your coin sucks. So now websites determine the protocol, But, it really rubbed me the wrong way. I'm like, man, and Colin's just like, I don't care about the website, what the website looks like. That's not, I'm focusing on the protocol. And I was just like, all right, I'm going to spend a couple days. I'm going to build a website. So I built the website, and it's actually been a great way to put all the information for people to go through to learn how to mine, to learn about Nexus, to connect with us. And you put a little chat box there. My phone, it connects straight to my phone, and people are like, I'm talking to somebody that's actually on the project right now, and I'm like, yeah. Like, we're not a robot, like we're just people like you and me. I mean, like, we're all people here. We're not rock stars. We're just, people that are trying to make a change in the world. And we see the potential through the blockchain. And the main reason I was going to have this speech today, and one of the reasons that I really believe in blockchain technology, and this is not just Nexus, this is, any immutable ledger, like Bitcoin and Nexus, is history. History is one of my greatest passions, because with history, anything can be changed, and what our children are taught in history is wrong. And the reason we don't get the whole history is because the victor gets the history book, and they change the history book to their own liking, to their own political agendas. The blockchain changes that. Why? Because for the first time, we've got an opportunity right now where once history is written, it's written. The old term used to be written in stone. Our children are going to say it was written on the blockchain, because stones wither away. The blockchain lives forever. So as long as it's an immutable ledger, it lives forever. And so far, Bitcoin is king because it has the longest running immutable ledger. That means its transactions, it's the first time in history that it's had like nobody can change it. And as long as we keep towards that goal, I can see it applying to history. And the Bitcoin's backed by data. So what is data? Well, history can be a form of data. And that's the data of our past. And we can literally record history on the blockchain and protect history from ever being manipulated by the victor. With Bitcoin and Nexus, you got financial history. So if you imagine a gold coin, this is how I like to describe it to people. Imagine one gold coin that had every gold transaction in human history written on that one gold coin. Well, how valuable would that information be on that gold coin? It'd be worth more than the gold, right? Well, that's what the blockchain is. The blockchain is a whole sphere where each person owns a little hectare of that sphere, okay? And that little hectare is that little key to that information. And to have a piece of that immutable ledger, which is a history book of transactions, is valuable. And people may not realize how valuable this data is, but data is so valuable that it cost Hillary Clinton in the election. Sure. She didn't have secure data. We have secure data. We have secure financial data. A lot of people don't realize the dollar is encrypted. Technically, if anything that's encrypted is a cryptocurrency, the dollar is a cryptocurrency, but it's not. What is a cryptocurrency? Is cryptocurrency anything that's got cryptography added to it? What's a blockchain? Is a blockchain any database? No. A blockchain's not any database. A blockchain is a chain of blocks. And a cryptocurrency is not any cryptographic currency. It's a decentralized cryptocurrency. So it's a decentralized money supply that no one person can, control. A lot of people have been panicking lately about this whole China bid. China banning Bitcoin. But China already announced they can't ban Bitcoin. They said, the reason we can't ban it is because nobody's running it. So then they're like, ICOs. We're going to ban ICOs. Why? Because a couple people run ICOs. It's easy to ban an ICO. That's the tactic they went. And they knew that it would affect Bitcoin in a negative way, which it did. Because Bitcoin is overexposed to other markets that have allowed people to run rampant instead of questioning certain projects that should deserve to be questioned, as Nexus deserves to be questioned. I enjoy when people question it because there's areas of improvement always that we can learn from. But I mainly see that history in the future, has anyone ever seen The Fifth Element here? Okay. She's sitting there and she's scanning through the history, right? And all that history is just like blowing her mind. That's how I envision history coming from CubeSats to my local device, decentralized, so it's not censored by any media, which is an arm of the government, and anybody that wants to manipulate information. You know, like this information is and the media is very tied into history and current events. Current events is history. It's history in the making. I was surprised. I was sitting with Max Kaiser yesterday doing a podcast with one of the crews from Philly, and I was surprised that he didn't know what happened in Iceland. You know, like Iceland's government is gone. It disbanded. It came after the summer recess, and because there was some pedophilia in high government, they disbanded. Half the government walked out and they disbanded. But you don't see it on the news. That's a current event. That's history in the making, and it's probably going to be forgotten history. I mean, people here remember, but a lot of people have no clue that they threw bankers in jail. You know, so this information, it's got to be put somewhere.
So when did this Iceland thing happen?
Exactly.
From HuffPost, like they just posted, Iceland's government just collapsed amid a pedophile scandal 5 days ago. So.
Yeah, that seems like some pretty big news. That's current events. Yeah. And you know what? We're all going to remember this here in our brains, but that's not going to be translated into history books. Well, you can put it on Steemit, but I like Steemit as a platform for reaching people that are like-minded, like everybody in here, because everybody seems to use Steemit, and it's also great for search engine optimization. But the problem with Steemit is who runs the servers.
So like, here's the headline.
Yeah, well, lots of people, but it's not really too clear to me who runs the servers. Well, but I don't know who they are, but are they known who they are?
Well, each of the people that run the network are called witnesses in the Steemit blockchain. And the witnesses are the equivalent of miners in the Bitcoin blockchain. And they all are communicating with each other. So it's kind of a self-regulating community in that if some aberrant guy comes up and tries to be a witness and gets elected into office, starts producing bad blocks and making a mess of things, the other witnesses will keep him in check. They'll be announced to the world that he's messing up, and he'll be voted out of office within an hour.
Oh, okay. You see, it's hard. That's something all of crypto has to kind of work on, is getting this information readily available. Because I looked for that information, I couldn't find it.
Are you referring to the network or the GUI? The web page, the web interface.
I'm not talking about the web interface, I'm talking about the actual
blockchain
itself.
Yeah, what we're talking about is not the blockchain. So it is written on the blockchain, but the graphic user interface that you interface with has some central authority managing that interface.
True, but that is also actually even decentralized to a degree, because there's busy.com and there's steemit.com. There's actually quite a number of different things running against the same blockchain that provide totally different user interfaces. For example, there's I don't remember the name of it, but there's a forum now that's on the Steemit blockchain. So it's very wide-ranging in terms of the applications that are built on it. So release something. There is some censorability in that regard, but that can be overcome too. But that's the proof of stake. That's the problem with proof of stake. If you have enough money to buy your influence, then you can buy the steam power and make influences. But other people that have more steam power than you, like Ned, the guy one of the founders of the company, when he sees that kind of thing going on, he oftentimes will bring to the attention of the community. There's a thing called proxies. So even though you personally don't have all the steam power necessary to overcome that kind of attack, you have a bunch of people that have collectively a bunch of steam power, and that will allow you to attack this guy in summary.
Sorry.
It's not perfect.
Yeah.
There's stuff
But no, I do see steaming as a step in the right direction for preserving history. But I see there's a big area for this to be worked upon. History is very important because when you, if you guys remember going to school, were you really, like your parents went like, I don't remember hearing anything about the Vietnam War at all, nothing. Always reached up to World War II, and then that was it in history every year. And they take me all the way back to medieval history, and I go all the way up to World War II, but I never heard about the Vietnam War because I heard about the Vietnam War from my parents, you know? And I was hearing something from, they knew that my parents told me what the Vietnam War was about. But you know what's funny? My son's hearing about the Vietnam War now, but he's not hearing about the recent wars. Those are not the wars that he's learning about. So this is like, history is so important because it's the channeling of this information. And STEAM, it does go in the right direction because you're able to reach people that you would otherwise not be able to be reached upon. You post on Facebook, you're not going to get the reach that you're going to get on STEAM it. But I see it more of as a blogging platform more than anything. I'm trying to figure how we could, you know, and this is kind of why it's a roundtable event here, and I'm open to ideas of anyone that can think of ideas on how we can preserve history with the blockchain. I think that the history of Bitcoin is kind of the best history book we have right now because it has the longest running history book, and that kind of gives it its value over other cryptocurrencies. And people are like, oh, well, you know, it could die any day, but it's going to take years still for another cryptocurrency to reach the status that Bitcoin has in history. It has the history of being immutable.
It's going to be its content and its credibility of the person that put up the content. When we started Freedom's Phoenix, that's the one thing I saw the same thing. I'm going, the currency of the future is going to be credibility. It's going to be who do you believe. And it's going to be steam power and how much you bought and don't mean squat. It's going to be eventually, it's like, I believe this guy. And what did you
Trust.
Pardon me?
Yeah.
Trust like that.
Trust.
Well, you know, where did you see this really take place? It was the spontaneous order behind Dr. Paul's campaign. You know, with evolution, I'm telling you, it was credibility. Young people, they go, they look, and they see you've been saying the same thing for 40 freaking years. You know, all of a sudden, wow, the guy told no wonder we didn't hear about him. You know, so when you're talking about, I mean, the first thing I'm thinking, yes, you can have, you know, data that doesn't change, but it doesn't matter if you got bullshit data to begin with.
Well, yeah.
You know, it's who you try, it's the content and the credibility of the people that created it,
Yeah.
you know, and how it's reinforced. So just having an immutable, you know, data my fifth grade school teacher wanted, you know, doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, yeah. No, I agree. And that's what checks and balances, you know? There's got to be checks and balances in everything. And I mentioned that earlier, the golden mean. Checks and balances, because you don't want to, you know, anarchy gets a bad name, but, you know, can we say disorder? All right, you don't want people running around violently killing each other, but you also don't want a single man in charge of everybody killing everybody. So you have to come somewhere in between to find a happy, peaceful balance.
And I think we need tools that can also allow anonymous posting. You can't have credits simply tied to an individual's credit. Some data stands on its own intrinsically, and you won't get it if you have to post your name. You need mechanisms to allow anonymous posting.
Yeah, we need the whistleblowers and the journalists that are out there reporting about the corruption that's going on. So no doubt, we need anonymity as well as open ledger as well.
Oh, I agree. I agree. Especially because people get offed for putting out information that's dangerous to the established regimes.
I wonder if that makes the core development team, at this point in time, vulnerable, if that's permitted, to political threats and that sort of thing. Say, hey, we need you to censor this guy because he's about to release information about what we don't want the public to know. So I think that's very good that you guys have that in your mind to make Nexus greater than just the core development team.
That's something that is very realistic, and something that everybody. That's why Satoshi is anonymous. You know, and there's quite a few of us that have worries at that. and justified worries, because these people will go to lengths to preserve their power, and all we're trying to do is to power down them, as is in Steam. We're trying to power down them and give power to the people, over their own financial futures. They don't like that idea. That's not a very popular idea.
I want to ask you guys, everybody, have an input on this, because when we were young activists, relatively young, like 30 years old, in the early 90s, early 90s, the first email account I got was 91, 92, something like that.
I have one in 93.
Pardon me?
So I have one in 93.
Yeah, it was about, then we got our first email accounts. Well, we started seeing with the 92 Ross Perot thing that was going on, what was being suppressed. There was thousands of people in these rallies, and they never said anything, but we knew because we were on the internet, had people communicating. Well, as time went on, you had email servers that were just like BBSs. You didn't have the World Wide Web, it was, it started creating its own. It was already good. World Wide Web was to put us on the plantation, and we could see what was going to happen. But before that, you could have anonymous accounts. Nobody knew who you were. You'd be on different issue-based email lists, like First Amendment, Second Amendment, Bill of Rights, Libertarian, whatever the hell. And you go there, and it got to the point where I could ask, and my spelling sucked. It was before spell checker and everything. Nobody cared. Just ask a question, and the answer would come back. A real detailed, people had the time, they knew better, they're smart, educated, whatever, wants to help the planet answer. As time went on, then here come the trolls, all right? It was, and I could see it was a diversion. They didn't want you to have this free flow. They wanted to direct it in a certain way. You're just stupid, you shouldn't be talking about it. And they're like, and I think it was more orchestrated. They were more paid, they were influenced parties or issues or government or something like that. In the beginning, when it was anonymous and anybody could do anything, later you would find out some of these great detailed letters with, judges and, government officials or politicians or people that, they could be themselves when they were secret. When you found out who they were, you'd be like, I came from them, because publicly they were not saying this stuff, So you really, with anonymity, you get to be the person you really want to be, whether that's a good or bad, but you're real, as opposed to now, you're conforming to this citizenship score in China kind of crap.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask, what you think. Should we go totally anonymous internet? It's going to be totally different. Because and just jokingly, but and when I did this, there was a kitten, and they were found in a cactus in her front, and then they took it and whatever. I was making fun of this, and it's just serendipity. But I know the internet's not free because there's not a cat-a-pult channel. Cats in the cactuses, man. When you get cats in the cactuses, and you can put them on the internet, because the internet's all about cats, they will freak out. And when you can have your catapult channel, video channel, and nobody can get you, then you're free.
Yeah.
Outside the studio window.
Well, I think you're right. That allows people to be more creative, more open, and that is something that needs to happen, is to have an anonymous internet. But I think that it needs a check and balance on that, because with anonymous internet comes some pretty heinous things. So in order to combat that, there has to be some sort of trust involved, and the trust can be attached to an anonymous name. So you can build trust as an anonymous person, as Satoshi has. He built trust in a trustless system. People trusted him. We all trust him here, and we haven't seen him, or yeah.
The history that led up to it is what.
Exactly, and that you don't just get given trust if you're an anonymous person.
You want an anonymous single account as opposed to one person can be a million anonymous.
You could be a million anonymous people, but if you're, say you come into a chat program and you're just coming in there to FUD, and be obscene and hateful towards the people that are in there, and they're nice people, they can just downgrade your trust rating, which makes you kind of like filter out from the main discussion.
It's quite interesting because from the very beginning of me getting involved in 2014 in blockchain, I've seen this duality, this dualistic kind of problem, this philosophical problem, which is the secretive side versus the public ledger side. And both are necessary, as we've discussed here, but how do we balance that out? Well, there's a zillion experiments of how that's balanced out. It's not an easy thing to come up with, and I'm always very attentive to that, how one side goes against the other. You know, you see a lot of people that are trying to get adoption by the mainstream, so they're willing to do all these things that will tie identities to accounts, etc. And then the people that say, no way in hell are you going to ever get my real identity on that type of thing. So there's always this dualistic thing that I think is going to be really interesting to see how it plays out. And I suspect it's going to be played out by different blockchains provide different services for different communities for different reasons.
Well, yeah, I agree. 100%. There's two camps. There's the one camp that's trying to appeal to the mainstream and the bankers, and then there's the other camp that wants to go, hey, black market, baby, and I'm all about black markets. But at the same time, I can see where it could be used over here. And I'm not anonymous online. I was at one point. I was, all the way up. While I was a kid, I was very anonymous online. Why? Because I'd like to post my opinions, like you said, and not have to worry about anybody calling my teacher. I just wanted to be a kid, But here they thought I was like a 35-year-old man who was debating them in a forum somewhere. But I built trust up with that debate, and that name kind of held on for quite a few years online. There has to be a trust system in place. There really has to be.
That trust system is about your history.
Yes.
Credit rating.
Yep.
It doesn't have to be tied to your biological name, and I think it's really important. When you look at the scientific publications, it's almost impossible to publish anything scientifically anonymously.
Mm-hmm.
And you shouldn't need your name. That's the field of authority. Your science should stand on its own, and everyone should be able to replicate it.
Yep.
You should need zero name attached to it.
Yeah, but I don't want like a Facebook thumbs down, like YouTube hero warrior. You're not allowed to have a channel because you say you don't like what you kind of. You see my point?
Well, yeah.
I don't want somebody else determining my credibility.
The community determines it, not one person.
Yeah,
That's
that's
what's
Facebook got us
it's
at.
part of the decentralization of the blockchain itself. It's part of the history.
No,
of
I need to know the
integrity.
mechanism that's done.
No, absolutely.
Have a
No doubt.
robot go thumbs down.
Absolutely.
No, you determine your credibility by posting credible stuff. If you're not posting things that is credible, then you're going to shoot yourself in the foot on that.
That's right. No, I understand. A perfect example is like, you guys know YouTube Heroes, right? You know what that is? YouTube Heroes picked up where they designate certain individuals that have the power to go in and look at channels and demonetize. All this demonetization is coming from these YouTube hero guys. So what do? They pick a philosophy. Well, guess what gets, decredibilized or whatever you want to call it. Ron Paul's Peace and Prosperity videos are now demonetized.
Yep, how about that, huh?
We Are Changed Lou Rockwell. Boom, done, you're down. And I'm going, well, who determined that credibility?
That's a centralization problem.
That's
Yeah.
Well, at the same time, you're still appealing to the wisdom of the crowd. So if the crowd doesn't necessarily know the full truth, but someone really credible says the truth is one way, and the crowd trusts that one truth, then they may download something that's closer to the truth. Because in the end, the truth is not beholden to the crowd. The truth is in itself, right? So trust should be decentralized also. You need separate, different credibilities. You need to trust, go out of your own political spectrum if you're looking at political documents. You need a multifaceted history of what actually occurred.
I have more faith in people than I do institutions. And whenever you create a group or a movement around a cause or anything, sooner or later the group becomes more important than the reason you created it. Not most of the time, every effing time, okay? So when they do YouTube, we started Dreams Phoenix in 05 because we were waiting since '96 for video to hit the internet. I go, video hits the internet, they're F, man, it's over. So we started developing and doing whatever. Well, then what happened? YouTube gets bought up by Google. They come in and they, want to have, if I had everybody determine, which was a free market, everybody did determine. They got 40 million hits and everybody determined that, they wanted to watch it. Oh, hell no, that puts you on the first list of you're not allowed, So this decentralization of influence in like a Nexus, community that you have where everybody has a voice, well, I don't want that everybody voice to be a robot saying no, 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 no.
Well, yeah.
You know, or if they have some kind of any credibility at all, they got an account that they actually are a person or something, so they gotta get an anal probe or something, so you know that they're human, or, I mean,
Well,
how
you-
far do we go? I trust the free market. People having the ability to give their opinion in that, and oh my goodness, if they spent a little money, or it cost half a cent of a Nexus to do it, all right, have your opinion all you want, you know, or something.
Yeah.
But I don't want there to be some coder or software or YouTube heroes. You guys gotta watch the spoof on the YouTube heroes. It is hilarious, but it is true.
Yeah, no, we don't want censorship. We don't want censorship. But this is where kind of it's like where do we how can we protect ourselves, our children from like pedophiles using our technology for their means to remain anonymous and still protect ourselves. But it's kind of maybe there is nothing that we can do about it, but maybe there is. And the only way we know about it being an issue is to bring it up, because there's enough brains in here to think up of ideas that we can fix these problems. I mean, I see a lot of potential with Monroe, but what I also see, it's really heavily influenced in negative circles, and it gives me a negative stigma. Like, I don't want to have that touch me. It's dirty money. It's just like I don't like touching dollars. I really don't. It's dirty, filthy money, and I'd rather deal with clean money. So how can we do that? And I think trust and history are kind of a big deal. And if you've got a long history of being a trustful person, that should mean that when you say somebody's not being trustful, I'm going to trust your word.
When the trust is lost, because it not only builds, it can go down. Right?
Well, that trust is the network trust. I'm talking about it, and that's in relation to Nexus. I'm talking about trust in all networks. This is not just a Nexus thing. This is something that needs to be talked about across all cryptocurrencies. And like you brought up, being anonymous on forums and stuff. This is something that can be applied to chat programs, keeping people from coming in and being like, posting a whole bunch of racist crap in the middle of a intelligent conversation. Well, you can de-incentivize them, because they're actually just knocking their trust rating down, and that's on them. Meanwhile, people can ignore them.
Is people voting them down or something, or?
Well, people would be able to do that. I mean, there's nothing developed like that, but I'm just saying, like, as an example, there's an idea of something that needs to be developed to allow anonymous people to post great ideas, but not be clouded out by trolls that come in, and trolls that there's been documentation that trolls get paid to come in to derail things.
Development of that.
Well, actually, Colin is developing or in thoughts.
Thoughts.
About trust chat. He wants to come up with, we were talking about alternatives to Slack, and he's like, we have people coming to Slack that are trolls. And I don't mean somebody coming in once in a while, it's like this run. I'm talking about literal trolls that come in there. Yeah, they come in and they're just like boom, 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 and that's the kind of thing that, for that specific kind of interface, but, Colin also being the 50-year vision guy and a broader application is looking at how we can apply that. Now, will the first implementation of that work? Probably not. It's going to be an iterative process. It's going to be things that have to be tried. You have to see what works, and hopefully others can do it as well, and we can all see what works to make this kind of a network function the way that we want, where we want to be able to come in and say, function anonymously if I have an opinion about something. But on the other hand, try to control
Stephen has a reputation system that works to a certain degree, but there's been some points raised here where it's not perfect. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like you said.
I got flagged by somebody that had massive amounts of steam power, and it wiped out like $1,000 immediately down to like 2 pennies. And I was like, oh, gee, thanks. I'm glad everybody else. It was 99% of the other people that voted don't have as much trust power as this one person. So then that's.
You can counter that to a degree, but there's flaws. Sure. If you had a stronger community behind your system, then they might could collectively come together
absolutely.
and get rid of his vote.
Yeah,
And then you're like political parties.
yes, yes.
You know,
like that.
this is, when we first, from my experience with the trolling thing, it really upset me, when we set up the forums for Freedom Speech. When we started this in '05, there wasn't, WordPress, what the hell's that? You know, it was all original PHP coding that, we did, and Derek has cleaned up a lot of the stuff. But in the forums, it invited trolling during the revolution and everything, and here come the Obama guys and so on. So they would fill in their ID and use Ernest Hancock. Of course, there's account number, thousands later, but, I didn't say what they call themselves, So Ernest Hancock says this about, okay, we're gonna have to, put the ID number out there too. Well, the other thing was, I wanted the power, because who else is gonna do it, to go delete not only just a comment, but if I know it's an account that they're just delete any and everything you ever said anything about anything on Freedom Speech, it's gone. Okay? Don't make me put, don't be an ad comment, and who sets that criteria? Me. Okay? Well, what if I don't want to be the one? Just the work involved in it. Well, how can I, you come up with a system in Nexus that can be incorporated in a forum to where everybody gets to have and say and credibility and whatever the heck they want to do without some kind of a central YouTube video command, And I'm hip to that. I think it's very necessary.
Yeah.
That is definitely true. I mean, we talked about it for a long time. I mean, because like there's no perfect model out there, and it's something that you need. I mean,
It's something that's needed and it doesn't exist. it's
well,
like.
I've done it maybe 5 times over 13 years. But you only need to do it a certain amount of time to know that you'll do it.
Yeah.
And I give them warnings, but a lot of these guys, you talk to them, you can tell, they're just kind of, hey, well, I think, you can tell, they're just paid. They're just there as long as they can be there.
There's no perfect system because because the people that are participating in this quote-unquote system are humans. And we're all so different and we all have our own vested interests. So I don't see that there's going to be a perfect solution, whether it be
Absolutely.
automated or whether it be a person. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that you're gonna have to accept a level of imperfectness.
Exactly.
And say, this is okay for
That's
me.
essentially my point, yes.
The Amazon rating system works relatively well, like books. So if you could have every user rating each person and giving potentially an explanation why, I believe that, because even when I look at a book, I look at the reasoning why somebody doesn't like a book.
Yeah, but what was the news just in the last few days?
Yeah.
Amazon eliminated all the negative comments.
That's why you can't have control over it, yeah.
Well,
Yep,
that's what I
that's
think.
a-
That's right there, you have the same problem. Then you have eBay, that worked pretty well. They had, the Trust Me economy. I remember Time Magazine, it was called Trust Me, and it had Airbnb and Uber and this and that, and I left the key under the mat, walked my dog, and you had access to all my sex toys in my dresser. I mean, so that is how the society is opening up, and they aren't as fearful. Government has been using fear to get you to be under control all the time.
Yep.
And now, in libertarians in the 90s, we're going, yeah, you want all this transportation to spend billions of dollars, why don't you just let people pull over in the bus lane, and everybody wants to get in, give you a buck, and I'll take you to whatever. Oh, hell no, the taxi, well, then here comes ride sharing, Uber and so on. These things are happening, people are trusting, but I need what you're talking about, this, is because eBay worked really well, but then what happened? You got PayPal, eBay merged in, the government says $10.99. I mean, I saw people at the beginning, this is freedom, we're gonna have businesses, and here it comes. Here's where you need some anonymity.
Yeah.
But you need the credibility. Dan, you see, you fix that too, and then get off Darkness Grid with a mesh, in space. The world changes.
Yes,
That's
yes.
why I'm here.
Yeah, and I'm glad you're here because we need you.
I need you to make me happy.
But no, seriously, these are all things that need to be addressed because they're issues. I mean, the whole centralization thing with Uber, right? Who else here asked their hotel about Uber? Did anybody else ask them?
We used Uber last night.
Yeah, I was told by my hotel that Uber doesn't operate here.
Well, I'm an Uber driver
I live here,
locally,
and
why
that's the
wouldn't you
myth they
expect
perpetuate, because they have their own shuttle service, so they can get their own money.
Yeah.
That's interesting, because I heard the same things we were talking about last night.
It was 9 drivers last night. Which is a lot for our town.
Yeah, so, I find it interesting how corporations tend to reflect a lot of qualities in government, such as lying and misleading, and being a mob of people. It's basically a mob of hotels kind of blocking out their competition.
As an Uber driver, their rates are just too, the pay is too small.
Yeah.
It's not really collusion, it's just the fact that you can't.
Yeah. Well, back on subject though, but yeah, we have to build these systems, and Nexus can't build all of them either. That's why all these other cryptocurrencies are important, but it's important to realize that not all these cryptocurrencies are actually going to bring things to the table. Steemit has proven to bring something very important to the table that I use a lot, and I use it for Nexus. I mean, I wrote a tutorial on how to become a cryptocurrency trader, and because people are like, I have no clue how to get Bitcoin. Step by step, get Bitcoin, get the Bittrex, and here this article is on Steemit, and it ranks on Google. I wouldn't, if I posted it on any other social media platform, it'd just be lost.
When I don't have a link to it, I just type in Keith and how to become, and it, boom, there it is.
Yeah.
So I've got a question. I'm not a developer or anything, but from my understanding, Nexus is the ecosystem for developers to come in and develop certain contracts for the system. Now, can developers make it such that their contracts internally are not subject to the credibility system of Nexus, but on the outside, it is?
Absolutely. The way the smart contract system is going to be set up, and it's not necessarily a smart contract. It's a scripting contract. It's between you and the person.
So in which case, some of these
and the person could include everybody in here, included on that script, but it's included between those people, and people from outside the contract are they're not an influence on what's going on, and it's not going to bog down the main blockchain, which is important, because you don't want to be having all the contracts just filling up the blockchain. You're going to be creating your own little side chain off of that for your contract, which allows you to do more peer-to-peer things, and advance, like you said, build development, build apps. But is that app going to bog down the whole blockchain? No, because you're going to go off and do your own thing, but it's still going to be connected. So, it's a nice little circle that everything can work together with.
And I think that functionality could ease some of the concerns about the credibility from the outside, because it can still exist on the internal scripting contract.
Yeah.
That sort of freedom
Now,
that we're looking
if
for.
you're referring to more of, a developer contract to say, okay, we want you to work for Nexus, and, we're gonna put this contract out there, and it has this term, we decide, it's a year or 6 month term, and we're gonna pay out of the block subsidies, we're gonna pay you X amount of Nexus for X amount of time, reviewable at such and such time, and that gets put out to the network, and all the voting groups vote on whether they believe that is a valid use, then, they will vote that in, and then you'll be liable for that, and it's 3 months when we say, let's, reevaluate that, and is this person performing to what they said they could? That's a little bit different than what Keith was talking about outside, but that's where we're going with our network, to be able to do that kind of thing.
So and what he was saying was like being able to have like a private contract. The public contract is also important, especially when it comes to Nexus development. It's like, hey, we hired this developer, we're setting these terms, you're going to work for 6 months for this much a week, and you have to produce X amount of lines of code, or you have to produce this, wallet and whatnot. And then if they don't meet those terms, they don't get what's in escrow. And all these terms are agreed to by everybody that votes on the network. Now, that's not something that we have established yet, and because of that, we have to go through the existing legal framework, which is why we set up the Nexus Embassy, and it's myself, Preston, Kier, and Colin on the embassy. And it's, we want to have that a cryptographic government, you know, so it's governed by the people, but in the meantime, until it's built, this is the way we have to go through the existing legal system, so the IRS doesn't come swooping in or something and try to take everything out, because you know that's a weakness, and that's a centralization weakness, because you know originally it was just Colin, you know, now we got divvied up with more people. Now we're bringing other people involved on, you know, and that embassy can be broken down essentially and put into a smart contract, a scripting engine, where everybody decides who's doing what and who's who. If people don't like me, they can kick me off, you know, and that's the way it should be.
So Nexus to be developed where it starts, you know, being useful and really impactful in the space is when? I mean, what are we looking at?
That's honestly, I mean, Collins, you know, close with Tritium base, and, you know, once that Tritium base comes out, he'll be able to build upon that much faster, because, I mean, essentially what he's doing is he's eliminating the Bitcoin blockchain, and he's transferring that onto a completely new
Protocol.
And so, once that, he has the most part of that base done, and I know he's talking something about what he's coming up with, but, you know, once he has that, he will be able to move a lot quicker into developing the other portions and start, you know, and the other people will be able to build.
What's the ETA of this Tritium?
Tritium, I mean, the base, I won't give a date because it just can't do that.
Well, I don't expect anybody to give a date, at least if you'd be unwise to do so, but give a rough time frame. We're talking 6 months, 3 months, a year, what kind of time?
I would say.
Yeah, less than 6 months, absolutely. But being, you know, the advanced developments of everything, that depends on who else gets involved. And I've taken so many resumes the past 2 days. It's actually incredible, because there's a lot of competent people out there that are interested in being involved. And that's what we need. You know?
With Blackwall, sedan, tire.
Well, you know, the suits are about, you know, and when I mean suits, I don't mean the well-dressed libertarians in here. I'm talking about the suits. We had the end of the Fed event, and boy, you know, I'm pretty sure we had a couple talk to us. They were really interested. You know, we took the end of the Fed event, we made it a cryptocurrency event in Philadelphia. Because it was going to be a political event, and it was going to, hey, you know, we're running for office and the Fed. And we're like, you know what, let's throw some Bitcoin at this and make this an awesome music, cryptocurrency event and the Fed. And we're going to ignore the Fed by building a better system and voluntarily adopting other markets. And when you know, these guys were down asking some really in-depth questions, and they were really interested. And then a couple days later, they announced in Philadelphia they're having a blockchain event at the Federal Reserve Building to discuss the blockchain technologies disrupting current financial systems.
Literally within days.
Yeah, but we literally shut down the whole street in front of the Fed, which was pretty cool, you know. But that just shows you the suits are watching. The suits are watching. There's no doubt.
I can't believe you didn't call me.
Hey, you should have been there.
That's his fault.
Yeah,
Next year.
next year. But yeah, the suits are an issue. We were concerned that at some point the suits would come up with a lot of money and try to, you know, kidnap one of us or buy us out. That's kind of like why we try to decentralize the team as much. You know, right now the way it works is, you know, when money gets spent, and all four of us have to agree on it. So that's important, because if somebody gets taken out, they can't get to all the dev funds. They can't, you know, make that one person, you know, just go rogue, because the other three people are still there. But we want to take those four people and turn that into 4 million people that have a say, you know, because I believe everybody should have a say, you know, as much as I do with what's going on with Nexus. everything that's been done with Nexus so far has been largely through what the community wants. And we didn't talk too much about the community before, but the community has a very, we try to come up with a slogan for Nexus. Do you see a slogan anywhere on any of the Nexus stuff? There is no slogan with Nexus. Why?
Nexus.
Yeah, it is Nexus, really. I mean, we had a vote, and it's literally like herding cats, because you got all these people from all across the world. They're all a bunch of anarchists. They all want their own slogan, and they're like, I think this is blockchains from space. No, decentralization, or and nobody could agree. So finally, it was just like, this is actually a strength. Everybody's like arguing and saying no, So guess what? We don't need a slogan, because we're not Nike. Do we really need a slogan? Probably not.
With regard to your vision of decentralizing everything, what we've discovered in BitShares is that comes with a curse as well, because that means when you don't have a central vision of a person that's dictating that vision, you don't move things forward as quickly. It's much harder to pick the direction you're going to go in.
Yeah, I agree. And it's a leadership thing. Not a tyrant thing. It's a leadership thing, because a lot of time people just need a little guidance and a little bit of, hey, point it in this direction. I've noticed that, with people within our community, they're just sitting there waiting to do something. And I'm just like, hey, why don't you do this? Oh, I can do that? Go for it. And that's just,
One thing with you say leadership and it's one person and all that. When we were studying the pirates, the captains were democratically elected.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're a pirate and you're a dick, there's a bunch of guys with swords.
Yeah.
So it was amazing how they agreed, but during battle, when it was ready to rock and roll, he was definitely in charge. And there was no question of that as you're developing. But when you're strategizing before the battle, you're talking, the crew all have a say. So I just thought it was interesting the way.
Yeah. Thomas Paine was a pirate. Did you know that?
I think so.
Yeah. Yeah, he was actually, he worked for the Queen out robbing French ships, and then later went to become one of the greatest French revolutionaries and American revolutionary. How about that? His thoughts were revered in both as, instrumental and...
Yeah, a lot of times, the privateers having permission, the crown didn't care if you raped and pillaged as long as they got cut.
Yep.
When you're against all flags, the t-shirts that are out there, just grab one. If you want to donate a little something in the bucket, get it. Man, it's all pirated up. Man, you guys need to get pirated up.
Yeah. Yeah, piracy. How about piracy? Piracy is an issue that I don't really bother with much, because I don't really care. But I basically, like you said, hey, throw a little donation. I think that there's an opportunity for artists to actually put their stuff out there, and if people know that there's not some big, record label taking a cut, and these people are actually, honestly like, yo, here's my music, I really could use some money. If you could think about throwing me some money, I think that Volunteer Society would provide enough donations, shall we say, gifts towards them, untaxable gifts, to help them survive better than the way they currently do, having to have record labels. So,
I have no album to record.
What's that?
I have no album to record, man.
Now, you never had a record label, did you?
No, I have my own.
Your own?
Label,
Yeah.
Label, yeah. But we could do the Nexus label.
All right. That'd be exciting.
There's a bakery by my buddy's place, and they don't have cash registers. So they make a certain portion every day, and people come in and just drop however many dollars they can. If they're hungry, they don't have to change on them, they'll come back, maybe 2-3 days later. At the end of the week, you always have more than what should be accounted for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a voluntary thing, and that's what I love about Bitcoin and like real blockchain. is the systems that we're building right now are voluntary systems. Hey, if you don't like it, go use your dollars, go use your gold and silver, you know, buy a car with gold and silver. I'm still waiting to meet somebody that did that. Go do what you want to do. You don't have to buy Bitcoin. You don't have to get involved in the Bitcoin ecosystem. Nobody's forcing a gun to your head. When somebody starts forcing a gun to my head to, you know, buy something with Bitcoin, I'm not going to use it. I'm the opposite. You know, like that's what fiat is. It's government decree. So, you know, Bitcoin can't be fiat. This is an argument a lot of people are like, Bitcoin's fiat. No, it's not fiat. It's not decreed. It's a voluntary thing. If I don't want to do Bitcoin, I don't have to do Bitcoin. You know, if with dollars, I have to do it. Gold used to be fiat. People don't realize that. Gold was decreed by the king to be paid in taxes here in America. And that's the reason why there was a revolution, was because people didn't want to pay them gold. So it was a fiat. It was the way to pay the taxes was in gold coins only stamped by the king, not your own gold. It had to be stamped, which means it was higher than the spot value. So what is fiat? It's not Bitcoin. I can tell you that so many times because there's no violence involved in Bitcoin. It's just a voluntary economy. And what it is a thing that people can boycott the existing economy without having to use violence to do so. I used to hit the Fed right on. I'm like, we need to end the Fed, you know, violently crash the markets if we have to. And then I really started thinking about it. I'm like, that's going to cause so much pain and suffering for so many good people out there that either don't know because they, you know, not everybody's afforded the information that we've been afforded. Or are helpless to, you know, survive such an event. What we need is something more of like a soft reset, where it's a voluntary thing that slowly, chips away or, you know, bleeds from that system. And that's what's happening in China. You know, like what Bitcoin in China is really just like Andreas said, is just a crack in the dam. It's just a little crack in the dam, and they've got bigger issues to worry about, but they're still worried about that little crack in the dam. And those are some people that are looking to flee capital out of that state, and who blames them, you know? I mean, that's the best thing that I would do is flee out of fiat. I flew out of fiat just on that big dip on Bitcoin last week. I was like, I don't know how much longer this is gonna last. It could have, you know, I don't wanna be overexposed to fiat. So, you know, crypto is a good voluntary way that we can build a system and voluntarily boycott the existing one. Or peacefully boycott, shall I say. And at the same time, we're not going to crash the dollar market by doing it, because it's exponentially growing as time goes on. And that's kind of how, you know, Bitcoin was at what? It was at 10 cents one point, and, you know, $10, $100, $1,200, fell all the way back down to $250. People are, you know, like, people panic. Some people, like myself, I just average down the whole way because of 1 Bitcoin equals 1 Bitcoin. And I'm just trying to stack it in Bitcoin units, because I know Bitcoins are going to be worth what a Bitcoin's going to be worth someday. And that may be a lot more than any dollar will ever purchase. You know, I mean, $1 million Bitcoin, some people want $1 million Bitcoin, but what if $1 million only buys a loaf of bread? You know, so, you know.
Keith, how many people are on Nexus right now?
In the network? Well, about a month ago, we calculated there was like 10,000 GPU cards mining Nexus from the hashing channel. Didn't calculate how many miners were in. We didn't have time to calculate how many miners were mining the Prime channel, and there was about there's about 300 wallets that were staking over 2% stake, which means that they had held, which was actually pretty darn impressive, held for like 6 months, you know, and one person had a 3%, which means that they actually held for a whole year. But it's actually hard to do that, because all you need is some cat runs across your keyboard exit your wallet, and for 24 hours you don't check it, now you're back to 0.5%, you lose your trust. So that's something that we've been working towards, kind of like making it a vacation time. So, you know, something more along the lines is, you know, you put in some time, you get a day of vacation.
Well, you put in time and you go backwards, so
Yeah.
accelerated rate. So if my rate of reward goes up like this, you know, there's a factor of, you know, it'll decrease faster, but you won't go to zero.
But there's thousands and thousands of people that are in the network. I can tell because I can see on the website. Yeah, I can see how much time people spend on tutorials, and I can see the downloads on the wallets, and, you know, where they're from, and I can see the markets. But anyways, this is the end here.